said something else.
That's the we're live music. Just not that it's overly formal, just so you knew. Everything you say from here on out about grabbing meat or otherwise will be on the live stream.
If you're like me, you don't answer the phone with Tom without asking, "Are you live?"
It was so funny. I called Darren earlier, and he's like, "Are we on the air?" And I'm like, "No, it's just my phone." It's like, okay, good.
We'll get a Hangout call.
Smart move. Hey, everybody out there watching, we know we got a few of you. It looks like we've got 7 of you so far. This is the quarterly DTNS Analysts Hangout. We make sure the analysts know about it and can ask questions to us for this Hangout. We let all of the early morning patron access members find out about it about a half hour before the show through Patreon. So if you're ever like, hey, I missed out on that, you got to keep an eye on the Patreon emails, and then everybody can watch it afterwards on demand. It's available worldwide, whether you back us or not. But it's just our chance to kind of get together and talk about what's been going on with the show, what the plans are for the show, answer some questions from folks. So we're real lucky. The packed house this time. I had to travel to Salt Lake City in order to get this. Scott Johnson is here, still kicked out of his studio from earlier in the day. How's it going, Scott?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back again in the room that's just adjacent to where you are.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to squat in your place one last time. Roger Chang is here as well, returning from earlier today. Are you rested from the show, Roger?
Yeah.
I see that that you don't have Ellie with you.
No, my wife came home.
Senior advisor Jenny Josephson is here. Briefly, I would say, leaving a pie party to join us.
Wait, you were at a pie party?
It was actually Australian pies from a place called the Bronzed Aussie.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that place.
Amazing.
I thought about going to it. The thing about savory pies is you can't eat a lot of them.
Oh, Roger, you know nothing about pies.
You know nothing, Roger Chang.
No, I know a lot about pies, but I know a lot of how much my body will consume.
You can't eat a lot, I think.
No, that is correct. I cannot speak for anyone else's.
Their pie capacity, as it were.
Pie-pacity.
Pie-pacity.
Yeah. Wait, isn't that in Photoshop? I have to adjust the slider.
Yeah, it's somewhere around 3.14. You do it right.
Speaking of Australia, fresh back from Australia, Darren Kitchen here. So we will be having you back on the show next Friday. I guess we could have had you on today, it sounds like. But,
yeah, it was that. But then it was also when you guys went live, it was like 4 a.m. for me or something. So I don't know.
Yeah, how's your internal clock? Is it anywhere near normal yet?
It's so confused. Yeah, I'm on day 2, but I woke up at a somewhat normal time today, only 5 a.m, so that's good.
Yeah, 5
yeah. I mean, hey, coffee was open, so I was up at coffee o'clock.
You need coffee open at 5 a.m. Like that should be their boom business. Although not enough people should be up then. And I really enjoyed your snaps from Australia. That was really fun to watch.
Oh, thanks, man. I really wish I could have gotten more from some of the template goodness that I ended up at inadvertently and oddly. But yeah, no, I'm finally understanding Snapchat, and I kind of wish it had existed for the last 10 years, because so much lower impact of a way to vlog.
Yeah.
And it was my routine is usually like an hour and a half, 2 hours before the show. I'll take the dogs outside, take a break, kind of clear my mind, and I'll just look at Snapchat. And especially when you're at the temple, I was like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Some break.
That was good stuff.
So cool. Big plans coming up with the Daily Tech News Show. So this coming Friday, a week from today, we will be doing the show from San Francisco at the Hack 5 warehouse. Thank you, Darren. It's going to be Darren, Shannon, myself. I think Len's going to be able to join us over the Hangout as well.
Yes,
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be good stuff. And I mean, we let guests come to the warehouse. I don't know how big of a thing you want to do, but not to put you on the spot or anything. But
no, I mean, it's your warehouse.
It's pretty open.
Yeah, so I don't know. If you can figure out how to get in touch with Darren, then you maybe can figure out how to show up. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not going to be doing a big event. We're not going to have catering or anything like that. But
oh, okay. I'll cancel the catering.
Yeah. Or never mind, maybe we will. But yeah, so Justin Robert Young and Veronica Belmont are on the hook to try to drop by as well and be part of the festivities. But I've been meaning to do this for a long, long time, so I'm really excited about getting up to San Francisco, where 3 different co-hosts live. There are more co-hosts right now. Well, if you count Roger, there are more co-hosts and producers in San Francisco than there are in any other city in the United States.
Wow. That's like San Francisco in general, man.
Yeah, but Jenny and I are going to steal Roger eventually. We're going to even these odds out. So that's coming up, and mostly I say that because it should be a fun show to watch, because we'll be doing it from the warehouse, and that'll be a blast. Also, many of you accidentally found out about the Daily Tech Headline Show earlier this week when I accidentally uploaded one of the test episodes into the main DTNS feed, and then went to the vet, where it was very difficult to change. I have to say, here is one of my great examples of why mobile shouldn't override how you use things and how you still need a laptop. I could not get the edit button on SoundCloud on mobile. So there was no way for me to change.
Even with like Firefox and a browser agent hack on your phone?
Yeah, well, I didn't go that far. I didn't have that much time, I guess. But like in the app, they didn't even give you an option to edit something. And when I went to Chrome and used Request Desktop Site, the edit button just didn't work. So
Wow.
Anyway, the point of that wasn't really to complain about SoundCloud on mobile. It was to announce that Daily Tech Headlines is coming in July for real. There will be a smattering of test episodes between now and then. If you want to find them, just go to dailytechnewsshow.com and look for them on the blog. They will have their own audio feed once we get going. And the whole idea with that is we will have the comprehensive, like, here's all the tech headlines we think you need to know for the day in Daily Tech Headlines in 10 minutes or less for the folks who, and frankly, the number 2 most common announcement on our Patreon for not backing the show anymore is I didn't have time to listen to the show. So this is for them. Or for people who are like, I was on vacation, I just want to catch up. Whatever you want to use it for, that's what will be there, quick and easy every day. And then Daily Tech News Show will still be here 30 to 40 minutes every day discussing and having conversations about the tech news for all of you guys.
Nice.
Woo.
So there's that. Do you guys have any thoughts on that or anything?
So like, explain to me kind of the short form concept of it. How long are you gunning for?
10 minutes or less.
All right. You think you could get that to maybe 7 seconds? Because I feel like there's a Snapchat opportunity that's
Snapchat
just
was
not
10
being
seconds, right?
What, that it's bad for it?
No, I thought Snapchat was 10
Yeah,
seconds.
Snap's gone up to 10 seconds.
Oh,
It's 10 seconds now.
So if we go 10 minutes or less, I could do 1 second for every minute in the audio podcast.
Yeah, or you just speed it up, you know?
Will there be overlap of content between the two?
Yes, great question. There will be, because they are produced independently of each other. But hopefully the presentation will make that different. In other words, the headline show will say, Gawker Media filed for bankruptcy today. This is how much they owe to Hulk Hogan, and Ziff Davis has announced they're interested in it, and that's what you need to know. Whereas on Daily Tech News Show, we'll talk about like, wow, well, this is really interesting, and I guess if they'd been allowed to have the insurance back it up, they wouldn't have had to do this. So you'll get a little more conversation around it.
Some more in depth on
and
one versus.
And there will definitely be stories in headlines that won't make it into the DTNS proper, because we always have fewer headlines on DTNS.
And will this thing come out at a certain time of day?
Yes. It will.
Honey, you should ask.
Is it going to be live?
No, it's not going to be live. It's going to be audio only to begin with, at least, and it will come out at a certain time of day every day. I'm shooting for that, and that's part of the thing is to make this work. It actually takes some of the pressure off of me to be able to just write all the headlines in the morning, record that show, but having the flexibility of when I publish it make it easier. So expect it Eastern time wise I would say anytime between noon and 1 p.m. So anytime between 9 and 11 Pacific time.
So it's Tom's rehearsal hour.
Not really. I'm not rehearsing the discussions. It's just quicker takes and more. And you know, I had like 14 headlines in the show today. I would never have 14 headlines on DTNS because we want to converse about them, and it would just take too long. But when all you're doing is like, here are the things you need to know, and I tried to provide a little insight, you know, quick stuff as we go along. Scott and I did it together today, and that actually worked really well. I do intend it to mostly always just be one host, though.
What I think is most interesting here is that it's not live, which means it has the opportunity to be produced in a totally different way. And thinking about Tom and tech news in the last 10 years, when was the last time you've done that?
Not live was, I guess, the real deal. I mean, Buzz Out Loud started not live.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was just recorded in the studio and then published.
Yeah, but that was live to tape, though.
I guess, yeah. Everything I've always done is live to tape. This will continue.
You know, I guess that's kind of like, you know, I don't really make too much of a distinction because if it's live to tape or if it's live with an audience, it's still the same kind of stand-up energy.
Oh yeah, and this headlines is going to be live to tape.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm lazy.
There you
Actually,
go.
I'm not going to use tape though. I'm just going to record it digitally.
You know, if you put the tape in Audacity, it actually gets an authentic sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just gotta break out the C64.
Don't forget CreateCon coming up in the end of July, July 30th. CreateConvention.net, is that right? I want to make sure I get that. Jenny and I will both be there doing Let's Talk About Star Wars, and I will be doing an episode of Daily Tech News Show from the lobby, I imagine, or something like that.
I'll be there too. I'll be there for that one. It'll be a twofer.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Convention.net, yes, that is correct. Saturday, July 30th in Orlando, so the Friday before. Justin Robert Young, Brian Brushwood are going to be there. Willie Dills Gregory is going to be there. Jocelyn Moffat, Kyle Ferguson. It's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with all of you guys if you come into Orlando, July 30th. What are we going to do? Talk about Star Wars, Jenny.
I'm sorry, what?
What are we going to do?
We're going to do something big. It's got to be like bigger than the normal Let's Talk About Star Wars. Maybe there'll be some really juicy piece of Rogue One gossip that we can just chew on. Or maybe we can go on a research trip to the Force Awakens sort of stuff at Disneyland and report back.
I like that.
I was about to say, because isn't Disney World in Orlando? And if they did anything like Disneyland, they might have... Do they have a Star Wars thing going yet?
Yeah.
Like 27.
Yeah, we go to Disney World, or we could finally get Tom into Disneyland after all this time.
Wait, Tom's never been to Disneyland? You're in L.A.
Or either one.
What?
I've never been to any Disney property. That's actually
I know.
I stayed in a Disney hotel in Orlando once.
How many times have you been, Darren?
I don't know. In the last year, probably like four times.
Yeah. Disneyland and Disney World, I hate to tell you, not to get off topic, much better for adults than for children. It's too much for kids. Their minds are blown by like 10 in the morning.
Oh,
anyway.
no, the worst is like, 2 p.m. happens and it's Fallout o'clock and all of the children just erupt in one cacophony of like, we can't hang anymore. If you go as an adult, you can hang.
You can hang.
Tom, depending on when you leave your house, you could be there in anywhere between 30 minutes and 4.5 hours. So you should.
No, I've stayed many times by the Anaheim Convention Center, right around the corner from Disneyland.
Darren, I sense a mission.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Hey, Tom, can I put in a normie plug?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so
anyway.
Yeah, so just real quick, I've been doing this Daily Tech Normie show. I did one last month, and I want to do another one, but here's what I'm missing. I need a developer, a web developer that I can talk to about how normies should communicate with developers and how not to. So that's my quest. I'm putting it out there. I need someone who works in web development of any kind. I have a couple other types of customer-facing IT people ready to go, but I need a dev to complete my next DT Normie S. So there it is out there. C'est la vie.
Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Let us know. If you haven't checked out the last DTNS Normies show with Rich Stroffolino and Jenny, go find it. Back, it was in April-ish?
Yeah, it was like
First week of
early
May?
April-ish. Ish. You could just search Normie on our site. It'd probably bring it up.
Yeah. All right. Anything else that we're missing before I get to the questions?
Just that Wednesdays are awesome, and everyone loves Wednesdays.
Sure.
Yep.
Wednesdays and Fridays, obviously.
Yeah. And then Wednesdays. Wednesdays are a big deal.
Sure. Yeah. For sure. I'm not going to do the full-on financial run-through that I did one of the times that we did this, but just so you know, like everything is break-even for DTNS. You can go back and watch previous quarterly shows if you want to get like the breakdown of what gets spent where. It hasn't really changed that much, but we are kind of stagnant on getting to the last third of Peter Wells' day 6. So anything that you can think of, folks, to help push us towards the edge, because we'd really like to get him to do that every week. And if you're like, it doesn't really matter to me, that's okay. Keep going, because after we get to the Peter Wells thing, we're going to try to do a monthly roundtable that's just open discussion. So maybe that's up your alley. And we want to do more fun things like Daily Tech Headlines and the Normie Show and things like that. So in some ways, just supporting us helps us to do all kinds of stuff. Shall we get to the questions?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay, so actually Gadget Chaser is throwing what I just said right back at me. On the show, you do a great job of generating support through Patreon and even make a gracious point of understanding that not everyone can support monetarily by just asking people to tell others about the show. That's true. His question is, what are your ideas for what we as executive producers or analysts can do to help market and promote the show aside from telling people? I have my thoughts, but would love to hear from you and the whole team.
I would sit a family member or a close friend is like, hey, you want to come over to my place? I think part of it is just exposing people to the show. And I mean, if you're like in a carpool commuting situation, like have it playing on the radio or something.
Right. No, I like where you're going with that, Roger. Like Tupperware parties are like a big thing, right? So there should be DTNS parties.
Well, a little less obvious, a little more like, hey, that's a really interesting topic. Are you listening to NPR? No, I'm listening to DTNS.
Here's what I do. And this is what I just did at my new job. I went in, I made friends with our fabulous IT professionals that work at Marketplace, and I said, hey, I think I know a podcast you guys might like. And then I told them all about DTNS, and they'd never heard of it, because if you don't necessarily come from the tech podcast world, you might not have. And they checked it out and really liked it. And so my advice would be for people who are not already in the actual IT department, just walk on down there. Next time that person's fixing your computer, just have that Daily Tech News Show right up there, right? It's easy.
Is it too cheesy to be like, hey, were you listening to Daily Tech News Show yesterday? Because they were talking about driverless cars. Oh, you don't listen to it? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I thought as an IT professional, everybody listened to it, and then just go from there. Like, that's a really simple way, is find the people in your life who might really enjoy this show, and people you work with, people you might not actually even talk to regularly other than, my computer froze and I rebooted it and I still can't make it work. And talk to them and tell them about the show and tell them about it's one of the few ad-free places you can get really good tech news and analysis, and they should check it out, and here's how, and by the way, can I have your phone? I'll just put it on there.
Hand me your phone. I will take care of this for you. I mean, honestly, just getting people to understand what podcasts are, in some respect, is what you need to do. Yeah.
Huge.
That's much better than my idea of printing DTNS stickers and sticking them on toll booth.
Yeah,
I like that
they don't
too.
appreciate that.
It's not as effective, I don't think.
Or on ground beef packages, because they just get confused. Like, I know the PETA people do this, but why is this tech show doing it?
Right.
Leave it at Best Buy. Put DTNS stickers all over the place.
Yeah, don't do that either.
Oh.
But you could give stickers to people. Don't stick things on other things without permission.
At Best Buy. Well, if you put it on the shrink wrap pack.
You'd also have to buy the stickers.
Oh, right. Well, something you could do that's like free is leave virtual geocaches in the name of DTNS at Disneyland.
At Disneyland.
That'll work great with my grandma.
Yeah. And you'd be like, did you know that where you're standing right now there is a virtual geocache for Daily Tech News Show?
What's a geocache?
Hey, forget the geocache part. Let me start telling you about podcasts.
Mommy, why is this man talking to me?
So you get the younger demographic. You go to Disneyland, you find the bunches of strollers.
Get him early.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what would be really effective is if there was a DTNS chant.
Oh.
Because then you could send out missionaries into cities to do the DTNS chanting to get them really intrigued in what is this tech news chant.
Just imagine all the opportunities at the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup Finals we're missing out on.
DTNS, malware no, safety yes.
Or we could brainstorm better ones.
Or good ones that people would actually want to say out loud.
Feedback at Daily Tech News Show. Send us your best cheerleader DTNS chants.
Yes, send us your videos of you in your cheerleading outfits, men or women, doing your DTNS chants. Big Jim says, I'm often reminded of the quote from Jurassic Park. Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. Where do you think we're crossing the limits when it comes to technology in the near future? Where do you think we're going that we should put the brakes on and stop and think if that is such a great idea?
I would say in the realm of healthcare.
Healthcare. I see. Now, I immediately go to AI, but why healthcare?
So part of my thing with the way technology is being used in healthcare is that it's being used to solve a lot of, I think, symptomatic issues, but don't necessarily solve the actual cause of it. In other words, they help mitigate a lot of the issues that we have. For example, perhaps not enough doctors on staff or not enough RNs on staff. And so the technology will allow you to kind of maybe do a little more efficient triage or perhaps getting patient information, but it doesn't really address the issues of, for example, cost and quality of care for people within a specific area. It won't eliminate the fact that some regions of at least in the U.S., some regions of the country don't have enough doctors available to service the population.
So you're not saying it's a bad thing to do technology. You're just saying we should focus on fixing other things first.
I think technology in healthcare is just kind of seen as an automatic panacea for everything without necessarily understanding what the situation. In other words, people are looking at technology, all they see is technology, without like, hey, maybe we should step back and say technology might be good, but what are we exactly trying to solve or cure? I guess in healthcare would be.
I think we should not create pocket-sized black holes in labs until we know we can close them down.
Probably
That's
not.
my tech thing we shouldn't do.
Is that a tech thing? Yeah, it might be a physics thing.
I mean, the tech has to build the physics thing, right?
Yeah, but it wouldn't fit in your pocket.
Well, that's my fear. It would rapidly expand and all sorts of chaos. And no, actually, to be serious, I just interviewed at my other job wise internet guru Kevin Kelly, and he basically said a really interesting thing, which was that we are not going to fix the problems that some technology has created by going backwards to pre-technology. We can only fix it with more technology. And he's got this whole book about it that basically says inherent in technology are certain biases that make it inevitable that the technology will proceed down a certain path. Not necessarily what we do with it, but how just the way that processes are created lends itself to certain outcomes, inevitable outcomes.
It's very cultural in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
one example, I mean, I think everyone might be, or not, is gunpowder. Gunpowder was invented by the Chinese, but it wasn't used as a weapon. It was used as a celebratory device, firecrackers, fireworks. It wasn't until it made its way into Europe that it was seen as a way to move a large object at very high speeds at someone you didn't like. And so it's in the same way, and that's one of the. I think you actually, kind of in a tangential way, is that one reason why there should be more diversity in the technology field is that what you have is you have a very stagnated view of how technology should work and why it should work the way it does, because you're coming from a particular background, whether cultural or socioeconomic, that lends itself to that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's reflective of everyone in society and how technology could help in different ways, but not necessarily in the way you think. Scott wants to say something. I just saw his picture up there, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, no, I just made a sound. I think I made a little burp sound.
I can definitely riff on what you're saying there, Roger, and I feel like another technology that similar to gunpowder maybe these past examples will be totems for the future of things we should be concerned with, but like social media, right? When that was on the precipice, was anybody asking that question just because we can? Should we? Should we have these alternative means to share stuff other than? I mean, we already had email and Usenet. Did we, or news groups? Did we need all this stuff? And did anybody predict that it would grow a generation of narcissists glued to their phones rather than experiencing the world? And could we have even potentially seen that? And so it makes me wonder, like, what other kind of crazy stuff were people scared of when the automobile, right, the horseless carriages, and now we're on the precipice of the personless horseless carriages. But
cue the Scott Johnson old-timey voice.
Yeah, that's right.
But in all honesty, the only one that I'm those being examples of like previous stuff is the one that I'm actually most concerned about is just how AI will make for a generation of a useless workforce. That's kind of like
or a workforce that's set free to invent new kinds of jobs.
Or AI will just get really smart and then really depressed when it really just weighs up the situation of life, like everyone else, with a lot of time to think about things.
Yeah.
I mean, most philosophers it's a well-trodden path for a lot of philosophers, poets, writers. AI can be dangerous. I don't necessarily. Honestly, I don't think it's as scary as people think it is in so many ways. Just because, you're dealing with intelligent people all over the place. I mean, it's not necessarily like some people might be malevolent, or they might be somewhat bad for society. But on the whole, I mean, it's really about education. If you put an AI, in an environment where they go psychotic, yeah, it's a bad thing. So try to avoid making it go psychotic. It's the same thing we do with animals in zoos. They found out that certain animals, after a while, being stuck in the same 12 by 12 cage for 90% of their life, tend to go a little bonkers. I mean, that's the whole argument against SeaWorld, right? You put animals that typically migrate half the planet, over a course of a year, and you keep them in the swimming pool size tank, they go a little bonkers.
The only thing I would add to any of this that's kind of related is I hope we swing back in technology to bring a little empathy back into what has become of social networking and our ability to communicate across not just platforms and continents, but also across classes and economic statuses and all of the things in between that make up a very different group of people. So the better we can do at figuring out ways to maintain our humanity in a way that's effective, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's more less hiding who you are online and less anonymity. I don't know, but whatever it is, that's the thing I'm not only optimistic about, but I'm also kind of hungry for. I hope that makes a swing back.
Maybe it's becoming other people in VR for a while and seeing how you are reacted to.
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting point. I will say that I've played video games where I've like felt things where I'm like, whoa, you know, like can empathy be taught through VR? That's an interesting concept.
Yeah,
I mean, where's that beautiful intersection of technology and humanity?
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Where's
not there
Empathy
yet.
Belmont in this? Where's she? She have all
Empathy
talk
Belmont.
on it.
Yeah, get Empathy Belmont on this, Tom. She'll do it.
Well, I like Roger's idea that eventually the AI will have a existential breakdown. I love that concept, and maybe we can learn something from SeaWorld and just keep the AI in the swimming pool.
Or not, or just
Let it swim in the ocean.
set it free. Put it on Voyager 12 and send it off toward Pluto.
Are you making a Free Willy reference or? I'm not sure.
It's a Star Trek.
I think it's a
reference.
free V'ger reference.
Yes,
Mashup.
it's a Star Trek reference. You just got to let it go. Make sure it doesn't know how to get back home either.
Hide the nuclear vessel. So there you go, folks. A taste of what our monthly roundtable show might be like. Should you get us to that level at Patreon, patreon.com/DTNS. Philip Shane has our next question in the chat, but he's also joining us in the Hangout, and you're like out and about, man.
Yes, well, I'm actually in the backyard.
Oh, you said you were
but,
surrounded by something in the chat.
I am, but no, I am surrounded. So I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and right now there's this huge festival going on called the Northside Festival of Tech and Music. And right next to me is the Brooklyn Bowl. The Brooklyn Brewery and the Brooklyn Bowl.
Gotcha.
And there were tech
Homesick.
conferences. Yeah, come on, it's beautiful outside. In fact, we're having LA weather.
So, do you want me to read your question out of the question Slack, or can you remember it?
Oh, I can remember it. Well, actually, and it happens to be here on my screen.
Okay, good.
But yes, this is a real documentary interview kind of question. But there's always things that are frustrating, and I think we tend not to talk about them, which is fine. Because I'm just curious. I said, what friction? I mean, what kinds of frustrations or difficulties do you feel as you're doing the show? And in particular, is it self-sustaining for you yet? And you know, without getting into any numbers, I'm just curious if you feel it's self-sustaining, and if not, how long do you think it'll take to get to that point?
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
Oh, sure. No, it's sustainable.
Wow.
It's not retire on it sustainable. It's not. I could do nothing else but DTNS and I'd be fine. But yeah, it's good enough. And what I would like to get it to financially is that we're generating enough revenue that we could pay all the co-hosts enough to consider them like fully employees that could do lots of other reporting, that we could not have to worry about, well, if we send Justin to New Orleans, I guess we can justify it as a one-time thing and just make that a travel budget, stuff like that.
Hire freelancers that we trust to report pieces for us.
Absolutely. So having a little growing room. Right now it's like, it's enough to do what we do. It's sustainable, but there's not room to move financially. Whereas what I would like to do content-wise is exactly what we're doing. One of the friction points on content is I felt like DTNS was trying to be two shows, and that was really hard to say, like, okay, we're going to have all the headlines you need plus all the discussion you need. And when push came to shove, discussion was more interesting to people than headlines in that combined amount. And that's what the survey shows. Like, I really like it when you guys talk about the stories, and so that's what we've done. We've evolved DTNS to be the conversations about the topics of the day, but I was still putting headlines in there that nobody really had anything to say about, because I felt like, well, we need to have this in here. So the headlines show takes some pressure off of that and lets us do that. So the other thing I'm hoping the headlines does, like I said earlier, is number 2 reasons people leave our Patreon is because they don't have time, can bring some of those people back into the tent to say, like, here's a thing that you will have time to listen to and keep up. And we hope that there are people who never even knew about DTNS that find that useful. I'm hoping to make a big splash with it on iTunes when we launch. I'm talking to them about that. And then that brings more people into discovering DTNS. There's a bigger tent, and then we can do more. So that's kind. I don't know if that I've wandered away from your question and answering it, but that's what I'm thinking about.
Oh no, that's exactly right. I mean, the fact that it is self-sustaining now is great, even if at that first level. I mean, one metaphor.
And I would jump in and just say that if Tom did this 100% by himself and wasn't as generous as he is with paying, Roger and paying the contributors and doing everything, it might be retire upon. But like, what I love most about this show is his commitment to growing it as a team sport, and to say like, no, we need all of these people and all of their expertise, and we'll pull the Amazon thing and break even for a while because we really believe that all of these people are necessary to our growth. I mean, it's really kind of awesome because he could just do this a lot more by himself if he really wanted to. And so so I think that's an important thing to note is like, he's very much made it a team. This thing is a team effort, and I don't know. That's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, that's very cool. It sort of feeds into the second part of my question, which was, if you saw this as a rocket, what stage do you feel would be lit right now? It sounds like first stage.
What's the burning fuselage falling into the ocean?
That's right.
It's reusable, right? It's a space rocket.
It lands on a barge. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're between first and second stage. Like we're past the liftoff, I feel like we're kind of releasing the first stage right now as we launch headlines and kind of really focus and on DTNS and bring in day 6. So yeah, we're in separation maybe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're a mature show, right? Like this is a mature show. It knows what it is. It wants to grow a little bit more. And my only frustration is like I want to tell every single person on Earth about it, and I feel like I cannot necessarily find the rest of the people that should be. I mean, I think everybody should be listening to this show, but I feel like in terms of growing it past the amazing, loyal, sustaining audience that we have now without losing exactly what it is and its purpose would be a real goal for me as this senior advisor type, is finding ways to be like, guys, even if you're not in tech, especially if you're not in tech, this is a show for you. Like this show will make you feel better about all the devices that surround you and all the things that people are, talking about on the radio that you're like, what? And if you listen to this one show every day, you will be tech educated and you will feel a lot better about yourself.
I must say, I think in my gut, that would mean actually detaching the discussion section from the headlines, because I think that the headlines have a particular flavor to them, and it's a little more hardcore than most people might, or it's a particular kind of audience, whereas the discussion is a really wide audience. Anybody can jump in there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the conversations are the entertaining and enjoyable part because everybody can have theories, whereas the headlines is the utility part. And Roger, you remember back when we did Call for Help and Screensavers, we often referred to them as tools and toys. Screensavers was about toys, like playing around with stuff and having fun and hacking, and Call for Help was about tools, like I'm serious, I just need the practical effect of stuff. It's a similar split.
And coming into this show as your resident normie in the beginning, I did not fully grasp everything that was in the headlines. Some of them kind of flowed past me. Some of them, when they're about chips and phones in India, still do. But the learning by osmosis that I did in this show over the past 2 years was incredible, just as a listener, even though I was on it. And I feel like if you just listen long enough, you will start to pick up the narrative thread of the DTNS and the tech story in a way that you don't any other way. So, that's part of what I want to do, is get out and tell the story of this show in a comprehensive way, so that people are drawn in that might not know they need it.
I could totally see that. I wonder have you thought about maybe putting up some discussions just totally by themselves so that people can jump in there, and then
we got a goal for that.
Oh, great.
We got a monthly contributor roundtable for that.
Awesome.
Hey, Tom, talking about the headlines here, just realizing from the perspective of both a contributor and a listener, it just dawned on me how exciting this really is. In that, I know personally when it comes to prepping for the show, I'm looking at the headlines rundown, and I'll still put like an X next to the ones where I'm going to contribute, or if I have nothing because I'm like I don't care about some BlackBerry financial yada yada. I don't have anything to contribute. And then sometimes it's like 3 X's in a row, which, as you know, means that it's going to be triple X rated.
Yeah.
But
right. I have to say, Darren, it's not that kind of show. I'm sorry.
Okay. But on the ones that we record and actually broadcast, I just know that when I'm listening to them, I'm like constantly yelling at you and everybody on the show on my phone as I'm listening to it as a viewer. And I'm just like, oh, this is fantastic now. If headlines come out before the discussion show, means that whatever ones I'm yelling at you as I'm listening to the podcast of, those are the stories that I'm really going to want to discuss in the hours leading up to that.
Yeah, no, I think that helps us make sure we have the topics that are something you can talk about, that are topical. And gives us the freedom and room to move around in there. Philip, you also go ahead, Jenny.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, but the best advertisement for the show is Tom Merritt himself talking to people. So if we could just put him in, every living room and do like a living room tour, that would be a way to grow it. I don't think he'd like that very much.
I could do a kitchen tour with him.
Yes.
Oh.
Actually, one of the best emails we've gotten all year was the guy who works in an electronics store in Lake Charles, Louisiana, sent us a picture of a smart fridge with Daily Tech News Show playing on it. And he's like, I keep this playing all day long on the fridge as a demonstration. I'm like, that's amazing.
Genius.
Like, talk about something that's like, oh, that's a way to spread the word about this. And then after we mentioned it on the show, some people went to the store and bought I don't know if they bought a fridge or laundry, actually, and asked for the guy. Like, are you the guy who sent the email?
Oh, my God.
So then he actually made a sale out of it, too, which was amazing.
But yeah, so that's another thing, going back to that other question of what you can do to promote this show. Like, is there a place where you could put Daily Tech News Show? Can you put Alpha Geek Media on the speakers at work while the show is live and just pique people's interest?
If you go to Radio Shack, get on one of the Tandies and say 10 print watch DTNS, 20 go to 10, that's good advertising for whatever appliance store you happen to be at.
I never got in trouble at Will of the Wind in Greenville, Illinois, which was also a Radio Shack, for doing similar things when I was 11.
It's like, don't get upset, press escape.
Philip wrote also in the Slack, what would you tell your 11-year-old self, and what can he remind you to do?
Yes.
Very documentarian question, Mr. Documentarian.
Or a dating game question. I'm not sure.
Or a dating game. I would tell myself, don't do 10 print funny things, go to 10. I would also tell myself, Mr. Coleman is not that bad. Be nice. Just because you liked the other social studies teacher better. What could he remind you to do? That's a really good question. I don't have an answer to that off the top of my head. Do any of you could any of you guys answer that?
I'll remind.
I could answer that.
What would I tell an 11-year-old Merritt?
Yeah.
Like tell you? Like when you were 11 or tell us when you were 11?
No. It's Tom that we're talking to when he's 11. We're like, Tom?
Tom, don't be frightened. There's a bunch of strange grown-ups in your house.
We're time travelers.
Yes.
Well, I certainly think I would tell 11-year-old me to go learn that coding thing, right? Go to college instead of taking more journalism classes. Maybe you should take a couple classes in coding, Jenny. And I think I would also say, like, deeply, do not lose your 11-year-old sense of wonder. And enthusiasm, because I lost it and it took me a long time to get it back. And I gotta tell you, Daily Tech News Show was one of the things that helped me like really see the world again in like an anything is possible kind of way. So, how's that for deep?
It's pretty deep.
I would say to myself,
Bye, Apple.
Really take care of your eyes because you don't want to wear these glasses when you're my age.
Yeah, and buy Apple stock. That's another good one.
Buy Apple stock.
Yeah.
But buy it after they kick out Steve
Scully.
Jobs, so it's super cheap.
Oh yeah, you got to buy it 97 or whatever, 95.
Yeah. And buy yourself a Pippin while you're at it.
Yeah, yeah. Hang on to that. It's going to be worth something. I would go tell myself to brush your teeth better because you're going to have some weird filling issues when you're in your 30s and 40s. But then I would say, that thing you want to do, you want to be a cartoonist and a radio guy. You'll get to do those things, so don't take so long to figure it out and just do it. That's what I do.
Mm.
I would say in school you can do really whatever you want. You have much wider, and out of school too, but like you have much wider leeway than you think. You could think anyway.
Yeah, the thing I would try to get my 11-year-old self to remind me is probably the thing that I keep trying to remind myself anyway, which is when you don't know you can't do something, you have a better chance of doing it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
There's all kinds of things that I tried back then because I didn't know I couldn't do them. You know, like becoming a radio broadcaster 5 years later when I was 16, stuff like that. That I would right now I'd be like, that's a horrible risk. Why would I try that? But
Yeah, being young is good that way.
yeah. Also, I would remind myself that I'm not as young as I was then.
Are you afraid you'd freak your 11-year-old out though? Your 11-year-old person out with your if I showed up right now with this horrible half beard and I'd scare the hell out of him.
Mommy!
I would probably be ecstatic because people used to tell me I would go bald at this age. So.
I was pretty sure I was going to go bald by this age. Funny.
There was an interesting moment, Tom, where in the Slack the other day, people were discussing. They were discussing like CSS or, asking about the coding on their website and stuff. And you said it really warmed your heart, and that was interesting to me. What is that about? Like, do you?
Oh, okay. So and Michael was saying I need to mention the Slack more often. The Slack was an afterthought when I created the analyst level. It was mostly about this Hangout. Right? You'll get access, and then Slack came along and I was like, well, this is even better access than the Hangout. Let's do this. And so seeing it finally just taking off a life of its own, where people are just having great conversations with each other. I mean, we're in there obviously, and we're going to stay in there and be accessible. But seeing folks not worrying about we have to talk about DTNS, just talking about coding. And having fun and just all stuff that I was enjoying as a spectator to the conversation. That's what warmed my heart. I was like, oh, this is great. This is fun. This is what I hoped would happen in here.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, me too. I love the Slack. And Darren, sorry I stepped on you there. You are fantastic. You are. All the guests are great. All the partners are great. But I love what you bring because I am a normie like Jenny, and you bring the most hardcore tech, but I totally get it.
So I'm trying to get to a Wednesday level, but Friday, so.
I was gonna say, Philip, I'm sitting right here, buddy. I'm right here.
But thank you. I was actually.
Scott, you're the most educated and amazing normie we have. You know all this stuff. You've been so versed in it, but you never lose that every guy perspective, and I love listening to Darren, but sometimes I'm like, this is beyond me, and that's when I tune into Wednesday because we're talking cultural, social, and then all of a sudden it's like Scott the computer programmer, and it's fantastic. So I love all of our contributors.
Darren scares me and gives me hope. The things he knows about terrify me, but
when I have to disappear, I'm calling
his confidence is amazing.
Can I tell you what I would tell my 11-year-old self?
Yeah, please.
So I would say, okay, well, first of all, forget the fact that I'm coming to you from the future because that's just going to confuse this message here, though I am you from the future. And I would say, don't worry about the future because, as you know, it doesn't exist. And so that's kind of breaking this whole conversation right now, but just trust me with this, that it can only exist in the moment that you're in right now. Yeah. And in this moment, you can picture the future as either really good and you'll get very excited and have, lots of excitement for this potential future in your mind, or you can imagine the future being bad and you may have a stressful response and a bunch of anxiety of this future that doesn't exist, but this potential future that's bad. And you may react accordingly to this that doesn't happen. And so I would just remind my 11-year-old self that in this moment, you are at 11. The future does not exist. You cannot project onto the future, and just enjoy living in that moment. And too much of my childhood was spent thinking about what could be or what would be or what wouldn't be, and not enough in the moment just living that.
Right on.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Good stuff.
That being said, the sun will explode and the Earth will be melted.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I'd break it by saying, hey, 11-year-old me, this is 33-year-old you, don't do the math, but in 6 years the sun explodes.
Hey, I want to get through a couple more questions that are in our Patreon analyst Slack. If you're watching this, either because you happen to see you're an early warning member and you happen to see the link, or you're watching the on-demand version later, and you're like, well, wait a minute, how do I get to know that these are coming? How do I submit questions? These are perks for the analyst level. So if you go to patreon.com/DTNS and check out the analyst level, it's $20 a month. You can then get access to our Slack channel and have all those great conversations. You'll get updates about when these Hangouts are happening well in advance and the chance to submit questions for them and all of that. And we still will do other question and answers that are wide open to people too, but this is done particularly as a perk for our biggest supporters. Howard is one of them and wants to know, are you going to do a single feed that has both DTNS and the headline show? No, I am not. And I'm willing to change my mind on that later if enough people are really crabby about it. But I feel like that is just an extra thing that isn't necessary since there's only two, and you can subscribe to both. And then if you get tired of one, you can unsubscribe to that. Whereas pushing them together is a little bit of extra maintenance for something that reduces your ability to separate them. So I think for now I'm going to have them be separate RSS feeds. Also, we got a question from Big Jim, who said, what is the future of tech reporting? I think this will be the question we go out on. We'll just go around the table. He says, is it VR? Like, what are we going to continue to do podcasts? Like, what do you think the future of tech reporting, and maybe even reporting in general, since it's all kind of the same thing, is going to be? Anybody want to go first?
I'll go.
Yeah.
So reporting in so much of like how the news is presented to an audience, or how news is information, the journalistic part is gathered, because that the latter part.
Both.
So I mean, the tools will change definitely. However, the journalists will still need to ask the who's, the whys, the whats, the where's, the whens. And there will, of course, always need to be the analysis, the ability to take all that information, place it within a context that the viewer can understand. Now, how that's delivered to an audience, I think, kind of depends. I mean, we are now in a period of time where our media consumption can be taken in multiple formats. It can either be, I don't want to say print, but text on a web. It can be via a podcast where I can listen to in my car, or it could be something visually that I watch on a screen, or even through VR goggles. And I think what happens is you'll see an additional, with VR and new technology, you'll see maybe an outlet, but I don't think that necessarily means the rest of it goes away. It doesn't sweep the board, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just-
It may even combine some of that stuff together.
Yeah, and what I would say is I think you'll start to see, all the different platforms being used by journalists. But what I would like to see is somehow journalism and the conception of journalists has really gone into the dumper in terms of public opinion of the profession at large. And I think the problem is that when people say journalists, they really mean the media in all of its varied, responsible, more responsible, less responsible forms. It's a big, big, big tent. And I think what I would like to see is the idea come back of journalists and reporters and responsible tech news show hosts get a little bit of their credibility back. And I don't know where we lost it. I don't know whether journalism became kind of like an East Coast elite ivory tower thing, or whether the profusion of people in typing up blogs sort of made it blow up a little. But I would like to work really hard to get that trust back, and I wish that it hadn't gone away. It might also be a whole bunch of people yelling at the media from their congressional offices. I don't know.
But I'm not sure it actually existed. But that's a much longer discussion.
It's a whole other.
I think Walter Cronkite existed for Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, but here's respect for people how they actually are two different things. But I got an email from a listener who said I could never say who he worked for or I'd get him fired. But he works for a major media outlet who says they have meetings and they have charts and they have rules about link bait, and they're using it, and you're seeing more of it, and a rise of that kind of thing and those kinds of stupid headlines in mainstream media sources that used to be highly respected in that regard because it's working. And
you mean like, can an army of nerds save Warcraft?
Kind of like that.
Kind of like that.
Because people click it.
I need to go click that at marketplace.org right now.
Like, people click it and go because they know, it fires people up, and journalists and news organizations know this. So it's a real challenge, that part. I don't know how that goes away. Unless we stop as people clicking on these things, I don't know how it goes away.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I also I worked with Peter Jennings, and I was at ABC for like 10 years. And I guess what I mean is that certainly there were these stars, but it really is true that the growth of the positive view of blogs and things like that is that there were these 3 or 4 mostly white men who sat there and read what reporters did, and that's great. They should totally continue to exist, but there's so much more potential now.
Yeah, and with the fractured media landscape, I just think that trust comes in smaller packages now. I think that the audience of 30 to 50,000 people who faithfully download this show have an incredibly high level of trust in Tom Merritt, and I would like more people to have that experience because it's pretty rad.
Yes.
Darren, you have any thoughts on this before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. I would just say that, as far as news gathering is concerned, I feel like AI journalism has made major strides as of late, especially in terms of like stocks and sports ball. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for AI as an assistant to do contextual analysis, and especially as tech is really that eternal return of all of this has happened before, all of it will happen again. And to have an AI that can see a trending thing and say, hey, this happened to Palm or BlackBerry, ran into certain similar crossroads in the late 90s, and this is the way things shook down. That would be really interesting to see. And just, I don't know, I'm putting some faith in it because I know that personally, like, my favorite news source is a surefire indication that AI journalism is a thing. So just go to peoplefamiliarwiththematter.com and see.
Cylon bloggers.
There's no proof I exist either.
Oh, I've seen some things.
So there's that too. Hey, thank you to everyone out there who supports the show. Our analysts, of course, our co-executive producers, the early morning level, quarterbackers, the nickelbackers, the people who just tell folks about the show. You all are the best. We wouldn't have a show without you. And I can't tell you how deeply I appreciate everybody who supports the show in any way they can. Patreon.com/DTNS. To help support the show and to find out who those people are. We also have it up at dailytechnewsshow.com. We will see you, of course, on the Daily Tech News Show on Monday and at the next quarterly analyst hangout meeting next quarter. Bye, y'all.